CNN has obtained thousands of text messages that were sent to Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. And what we discover is that there were Trump campaign officials, in fact, officials at the very top of Trump's campaign, who not only acknowledged behind the scenes that there was no voter fraud, but were communicating with other Republican members of Congress that there was no evidence of voter fraud. So as CNN writes, on November 6th, Jason Miller, Trump's campaign spokesman, texted a group which included Ivanka Trump, of course, Kushner, Hicks, Stepien, Scavino, and Meadows, suggesting that the numbers in Philadelphia didn't back up claims about election fraud there, okay? So I'm gonna give you the text message specifically from the campaign spokesman, Jason Miller. He writes, one other key data point. In 2016, POTUS received 15.5% of the vote in Philadelphia County. Today, he is currently at 18.3%. So he increased from his performance in 2016. In the state, as it currently stands, Philadelphia County only makes up 10.2% of the statewide vote tally. So POTUS performed better in a smaller share. Senator Rick Santorum was just making this point on CNN. Cuts hard against the urban vote stealing narrative. So essentially he's saying, yeah, it turns out that there wasn't really voter fraud in Philadelphia.
So there's one amusing thing about that Jason Miller text. It's still in an era, even though it was under Trump, where he thinks they have to bother being like attaching a giant flotilla of lies to a dinghy of truth, okay? Now they're untethered from that completely. They don't need any kernel of truth at all. So it's kind of quaint that he's like, oh, we're saying black people stole the election, but Trump's share of the vote actually increased in black areas and their share of the vote overall decreased. So our argument's full of crap and it'll easily be proven to be full of crap. So we should switch to another argument that'll be harder to disprove, right? But no, Jason, how quaint. You don't need any facts at all. So and by the way, the number one thing that right wingers say when I interview them about the fact that they had no evidence at all, lost 60 cases in a row in the courts is, oh, it was black people. They were intimidating the judges. That's why all the judges were afraid for their lives and voted even though Trump had all the secret evidence, right? So no, Jason, you don't need any evidence at all. But that is one of Trump's top aides saying we are full of crap behind the scenes.
I will say, like, I'm actually I'm shocked at how many nefarious individuals, including Miller, are actually like behind the scenes saying things that are kind of reasonable, right? Because if you would have asked me, if you quizzed me and said like, okay, who secretly behind the scenes was actually trying to throw cold water on all of these election fraud claims, I would have not guessed that Jason Miller would be in that camp.
I know, but to be fair to Jason Miller's right-wing credentials.
Do we want to be?
No, to his right-wing credentials. He's trying for different ways to steal the election, and he thought that one was less credible, right? So he's not making the mistake of being an honest and decent person. He's making the mistake of thinking that facts matter at all to Republican voters.
I mean, on face alone, like honest and credible person. Okay, well, let me give you more. A week later, according to CNN, Miller wrote to Meadows again, this time saying that campaign research did not find any evidence of a conspiracy involving Soros, a Democratic donor. Miller also said he was concerned about sharing the findings with Trump because he's afraid of Daddy. Daddy will get very upset. He might give me a spanking. What am I gonna do? Tell him the truth? Can't do that.
But Anna, that goes to the point you were just making, which is that almost everyone in the text, from the least unhinged to the most unhinged, all refer to, yeah, but be careful in sharing with Donald Trump, because they all, to the person, think the most unhinged in the administration is Donald Trump himself. And so they're like, be careful about telling him the truth. He's gonna get really angry. And a couple of them acknowledge, we got nothing, right? But don't tell Trump, he'll lose it, right? So they all know that they're working for a madman.
So are the alpha males back? I'm just curious.
Because it looks like they're all betas to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I want Gorka to tell me. Gorka, I know you blocked me on Twitter even though I've never tweeted to you in my life, but No, are the alpha males back? Are these the alpha males that you're referring to? It seems like a bunch of weak, pathetic, sniveling little clowns who can't handle Donald Trump's rage. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think I might have said this on Friday's show, but alphas need betas. And so the reason why a lot of these Republicans are massive betas is because they're in search of an alpha. That's the way it works in the animal kingdom. They're like, who's strong that I can give all my bananas to, because I need protection, because they're so psychologically weak. And that's what you're seeing in all the texts as well.
Now, in regard to Jason Miller throwing cold water on the notion that Soros had helped to steal the election, he had texted this. Lots there regarding functionality problems, not much there on Democrats' Soros conspiracy connections. We'll defer to you on whether or not to share full report with POTUS. POTUS is clearly hyped up on them, not just from his tweets, but he also called me and Justin separately last night to complain. Oh.
So in other words, he's saying, look, Soros didn't do it. We all know he didn't do it, but you're never gonna convince Donald Trump because Donald Trump is freaking crazy. So be careful about even telling him anything that's remotely true, because he'll lose his mind, whatever little there is of it.
So let's get back to Meadows and the text messages he was receiving in regard to some decisions that were being made, right, following the election, following the riots. In fact, let's go to before the riots happened on November 20th. Meadows was asked by a Florida contact how confident he was about fraud related to Dominion. Meadows did text back saying, Dominion, not that confident. Other fraud, very confident.
Which other fraud doesn't say.
Right.
But Dominion is supposed to be the main thing. Oh, they rigged the voting machines.
Right.
Even Mark Meadows, trying to orchestrate this coup, says Dominion, not at all confident. You know why? Because they had zero evidence.
Now, one of the lunatics spouting nonsense about Dominion was Sydney Powell. And Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, wanted to know why the campaign was distancing itself from Sydney Powell. 2 days later, Ginny Thomas messaged Meadows with apparent concerns, asking, quote, trying to understand the Sydney Powell distancing. Meadows responded, she doesn't have anything, or at least she won't share it if she does. And in response, Ginny Thomas just texts back, wow.
That was a surprise to you, Ginny Thomas.
Wow.
Yeah, look, Sydney Powell was a lunatic on TV at the time, going around saying, oh, I have the Kraken. I'm gonna release the Kraken. I have all of the evidence. And then she would say other lunatic things. And anyone sane realized, of course, you don't have anything, right? And meanwhile, the White House was in the beginning backing her, and then they backed away. So you see here the White House chief of staff saying to as big an insider as it gets, no, Sydney Powell's full of crap. She doesn't have anything at all, because probably internally, genuine schmucks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others were probably asking, okay, Sydney, so where's the Kraken? And then she's like, duh, I'm lying. Of course I don't have anything, right? And they're like, oh, golly gee.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, she seemed like a totally mentally stable person on TV. How could she be lying? Now, I want to go to a few more things from this report, including one of the few text messages that Jared Kushner was implicated in. So in one of the few messages Meadows received from Kushner, Trump's son-in-law shared a fact check on December 4th, debunking one of the most prominent election fraud claims from Georgia. The article showed that despite inflammatory claims of poll workers stashing suitcases filled with ballots under a table, that did not, in fact, occur. So it seemed like, Kushner, to give him a little bit of credit, I guess, was just trying to steer this whole situation in the right direction. Like, here's some fact checks, stop, this is embarrassing. But obviously none of this persuaded Trump to stop with his election lies. And then finally, I do want to get to the orchestrated messaging that took place after the riots on January 6th. They quickly started crafting a narrative, and we saw that narrative play out in real time. At 3:45 p.m., Trump campaign spokesman Jason Miller suggested to Mark Meadows and Trump aide Dan Scavino that Trump should tweet, call me crazy, but ideas for 2 tweets from POTUS, okay, so these are the suggestions. Bad apples, likely Antifa, or other crazed leftists infiltrated today's peaceful protest over the fraudulent vote count. Violence is never acceptable. MAGA supporters embrace our police and the rule of law and should leave the Capitol now. And then 2, the fake news media who encouraged this summer's violent and radical riots, they're talking about BLM of course, are now trying to blame peaceful and innocent MAGA supporters for violent actions. This isn't who we are. Our people should head home and let the criminals suffer the consequences. So as we know, Cenk, the only criminals that suffered the consequences were Trump's pawns, who decided to storm the Capitol. Some of them are facing very serious prison sentences as a result of all of this. Trump, of course, marched back to the White House, sat his ass down on a couch and watched everything unfold on television.
So earlier we had Jim Jordan text for other investigations, and Jordan also was backing the coup attempt filled with, hey, don't make sure Mike Pence does not certify the actual electors. We'll just call them unconstitutional and throw away the actual votes. And instead what we'll do is we'll put in, he doesn't use the word fake, but the plan to put in the fake electors. And then you see Mike Lindell in the text as well, and he's saying use the military, you go to martial law. These people all are 100% against our democracy. But what's also interesting is that in none of those texts, hundreds and hundreds of texts, you see a whole bunch of things where surprisingly people on the inside are saying, no, Soros conspiracy isn't true. The Dominion conspiracy isn't true. The Philadelphia conspiracy isn't true. You see all these things where they explain that their internal stuff shows that what they're saying externally, none of it is true. But there's not one text with one piece of evidence that the election was actually stolen.
Exactly.
Isn't that amazing? Right wing, where the hell is it? Right? No, there is no evidence. They just hated that they lost the election. And for right-wing authoritarian people like the Jordans and the Trumps of the world, they prefer power to democracy every time.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.